So, I saw Kung Fu Panda 4 twice, both in the theaters, and I can safely say both times I enjoyed it. So obviously the movie came out at the beginning of the month. It is now almost the end of month, and Godzilla x Kong is on the verge of coming out. So, before we move on to that movie, I figured I should give Kung Fu Panda 4 a little pin before we put that aside and move on to the next movie. So the boys and I do not have the time to meet up in the studio again to film another podcast episode and for me to get it out in time. We just don't have that time. So I'm just gonna make this quick video just to basically rant about it, if you will. So right off the bat, was Kung Fu Panda 4 a fantastic movie or a terrible movie? My answer is, it's mid. It's not the best Kung Fu Panda movie in general compared to the other three, but it is not the worst animated movie. I have definitely seen worse. Now, Kung Fu Panda has been a franchise that has a special place in my heart, and I'm sure a lot of people who grew up in my generation can attest and say the same if they've seen the movies. The first Kung Fu Panda movie came out in 2009, when I was still a little kid, just starting to go to school. So I had a bit of expectations going into this movie. When I first saw the trailer, obviously Tai Lung was coming back, and that already gave me some hope. It's like, okay, this might be the nostalgia movie that DreamWorks is trying to do, because as we know now, in a lot of movies in the past 2-3 years, nostalgia sells. And to prepare for this video, actually, I went back and rewatched the previous 3 movies, 1, 2, and 3, and just like Kung Fu Panda 4, I watched all 3 of them twice. And in doing so, I realized something. As a little kid watching those movies for the first time, I didn't really understand the deep storytelling. It was actually written really well, and it teaches such important life lessons. The first movie was about like acceptance of yourself. What you believe in is what makes you special. The second one was about inner peace, accepting oneself. And the third one was about, you know, chi. These messages flew right by my head, especially when I watched the first Kung Fu Panda movie. I remember sitting in my parents' living room and I was just laughing because obviously the movie was quite funny. They have a lot of comedic scenes, and that was what I saw. The action and the funny stuff. Now, obviously, as I'm now much older, I began to realize that, wow, this is probably like DreamWorks' best work yet. Not to discredit Shrek or Puss in Boots or the other How to Train Your Dragon, all the other DreamWorks projects, but I definitely say Kung Fu Panda, at least for me, has the deepest storytelling for sure. I can tell you right off the bat, my favorite is definitely 2. And when I watched it for the first time, I remember I actually missed the first 15 minutes of it because my parents and I were running so late, and we got to the theater like 15 minutes after it started. Again, I just saw that movie for the same reason as the first movie, for the action, for the laughing, you know, something a kid would just want to get out of a movie, entertainment. And believe me, it was entertaining, but rewatching it now, I realized, wow, I actually really like 2 because it actually is the darkest. It is the darkest kids movie I've seen, the darkest cartoon animation movie, and it's not dark because of the tone of it, it's dark because of the storytelling. Po's backstory is quite sad. It was because of a prophecy. Shen basically committed genocide on the pandas. Genocide in a kids animated movie. When was the last time a kids animated movie discussed about genocide and trauma? Po's mom died because of the genocide, and it just shows how evil Shen actually is. Now, that darkness is balanced quite well with the comedy, and the second movie definitely had lots of funny moments, but it gave me a greater appreciation for the story as a whole. And I just feel like back then, not everyone really understood the true message of inner peace. It is so important to make peace with oneself, and so I can confidently say the second movie was definitely my favorite. Don't get me wrong, the first movie and the third movie had great stories as well. I thoroughly enjoyed all three of them. I feel like the third movie was more of Po taking the lessons he learned from the first movie, and now he's in the teacher role, training the pandas to learn Kung Fu by being themselves. Because in the first movie, that's how Po trained, by working off his abilities and what makes him great at working on his style based on his physical attributions rather than following the book and the traditions and all that. There is a connectivity between 1, 2, and 3. The stories all connect. And by the time you get to the ending of the third movie, it actually does feel conclusive. I'm not sure, I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't feel that deep messaging behind 4. I get it, it's about Po selecting a new dragon warrior, and he finds his new dragon warrior and he is passing on the mantle. I just feel like the story seems so separate, which I guess is what they're trying to go for, but I didn't get that emotional touch that I got from the first 3. And the second movie was actually quite dark. I almost cried. I can confidently say I almost cried at a kids animated movie just because of how sad some of the story actually is. I didn't get that with Kung Fu Panda 4. Instead, what I got was just funny entertainment, and it was good entertainment. Don't get me wrong, I do like just funny movies, action movies. I don't need a deep, compelling story every single movie I watch, which is why I find the Godzilla -1 worshippers a bit annoying, but that's a story for another time. And I know some people said, oh, the script was made by AI or something. I don't think so. I just feel like the writers are trying to set up something new, because obviously they did confirm there will be Kung Fu Panda 5 and 6 on the way. So I feel like 4 is planting the seeds. 4 is doing what the first movie did, and is planting the seeds for a new story. However, I feel like it wasn't planted enough. So I'll elaborate in a bit, because obviously it's going to spoiler territory. So I'll just wrap up the non-spoiler section with this, that I feel like it's not the worst storytelling, but it does feel bland at some points, and I didn't hate it. Frankly speaking, I didn't hate it. I watched it twice, so I enjoyed the movie, but if I had to compare with 4 compared to the first 3 movies, I definitely think 4 falls flat, for sure. So if I had to order it, 4 is definitely at the bottom, unfortunately. So out of 10, I'm just going to give Kung Fu Panda 4 a solid 6.5 out of 10. I definitely feel like it's weak, but I do have hopes that 5 and 6 will definitely elaborate more on the events of 4 and reinforce some of the narratives that they went with the story in 4. That's my overall non-spoiler thoughts, and I'm sorry if I spoiled the first 3 movies, but they've been out for so many years. So now I'm gonna dive into spoiler territory, of course, and if you don't want to get spoiled, now is your time to click up this video. So of course, thanks for watching. So for starters, obviously we know Tai Lung is back, and I do have to agree. I feel like he was not done enough. A lot of people said Tai Lung was done dirty. I can see what they mean, because we know Tai Lung is a formidable opponent, especially from the first movie. We've seen his fighting abilities. He is insanely strong. The chameleon brings him through the portal, and they have a little exchange, and she's like, I want to learn your kung fu skills, and he's like, well, I don't share my skills with anyone. And the chameleon basically said, LOL, didn't ask, and closed the portal, and the chameleon soldiers try to fight Tai Lung. He beats them, but he only loses to the chameleon herself, and I'm not even sure what she did. She like shapeshifts into one of the guards, and Tai Lung tries to go for a kick, but he misses, and then she just steals his kung fu ability right there and then. You made Tai Lung look incredibly weak. A lot of people were hoping to see a redemption arc for Tai Lung. For the reason why Oogway didn't accept Tai Lung to become the Dragon Warrior in the first place was because of his dark heart. He saw darkness in his heart. So I feel like if they brought him back, let's say it's been many years, right? So we can say that Tai Lung has had a lot of time in his years in the spirit realm to reflect, understand why Oogway didn't see him as the Dragon Warrior, and why Oogway chose Po instead. And we kind of got that because when Po confronts Tai Lung's like, maybe like Oogway was wrong to pick you. I just didn't see how bad it was till now. Like, and then of course Tai Lung witnesses Po actually take on the chameleon and Zen, and eventually at the very end he comes out and he says maybe Oogway was right about you. That narrative was actually good. Tai Lung now respects Po by the end. Could have been explored more. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Tai Lung's story, definitely done dirty. I feel like it could have been elaborated more. They could have wrote more about him. I know they were making Zen to be the next Dragon Warrior. I feel like the fans would be a whole lot more happier to see Tai Lung redeem himself. Not become the new Dragon Warrior, but his redemption arc should have been done a lot better. Maybe he offers to help Po train Zen. And the other two villains were also brought back, Kai and Lord Shen, and they didn't say a single word. Maybe the budget was too expensive to bring back the voice actors, but I guess the whole purpose of doing that was to see the three villains on the same screen. And finally, my last bit of criticism is that obviously the Furious 5 were not in the movie. They were at the very end, in the credits. None of the voice actors were there. No Jackie Chan, no David Cross, no Seth Rogen. And by the way, I just gotta say, everyone who hates Awkwafina, she actually wasn't that bad in this movie. She just voices a character. Why would you need to hate on that? I get it, maybe her sassy attitude is a bit annoying, but she was not bad in this movie. She actually did pretty good as Zen. So honestly, she's not that bad, but haters be hating. So there's two things I'm hoping for Kung Fu Panda 5 and 6, which is, number one, we're going to see the Furious 5 be front and center with Po again, because apart from Po, they were a major part of the Kung Fu Panda movies as a whole. Secondly, I get it, they're going to make Zen the next Dragon Warrior, but do not turn Kung Fu Panda 5 and 6 into Kung Fu Fox. Keep it Kung Fu Panda. Focus on Po. And I know the writer has said Po's story is not the end. Please look forward to more. And so, I hope that's the case. Instead of Zen being the next Dragon Warrior, I do feel like she could just be one of the Furious 5. You know, she could just be a Kung Fu master. I get what they're doing with 4. They're planting the seeds for a new set of stories. But if you compare that to the first Kung Fu Panda, number one, the emotions wasn't there. The stakes weren't that high. The chameleon, I do agree, is like one of the weakest villains, because the first 3 villains are actually terrifying, not just in their physical fighting, but their stories as well, and the way they think, the way they behave, their objectives. There are actually stakes because of what those villains want to do. And I just feel like the chameleon's motive was the weakest. She just wants to learn Kung Fu, but she was rejected because of her size. Have you looked at Mantis? Come on. Honestly speaking, the movie isn't terrible. I like the movie and I will rewatch it when it comes on digital. But it's definitely the weakest. If you compare that to the first 3, definitely the weakest. And I feel like it could have been written more. Not better, but more. If they stretched out the story a little bit more, I feel like a lot of people will understand what's going on in the movie a lot better, and it will actually have the emotional impacts that the first 3 had. If I had to rank it, 2, 1, 3, 4. Definitely 2 was super dark. Maybe they're gonna do something like that again. That would be awesome to see. With that being said, those are my thoughts for Kung Fu Panda 4. Thanks for watching. This is like an edited down version of my podcast review. I mean, I've done this before, so anyways, that's it for now. Next up, we've got the big MonsterVerse movie, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. If you're looking forward to that, of course, hit that like button, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and we will see you in the next video.